I think the Cowboys are one of the worst run organizations in the NFL right now. Every year, Jerry Jones talks big talk and doesn't do anything in free agency to shore up the team. He gives contracts to players he favors. He overpays them, like what happened with Zeke, like what happened with their linebacker, I'm forgetting the name of, Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith a couple years back, and they regress tremendously when all the numbers tell you, if you pay this guy, this is what might happen to your team. And look at this offseason. The only guy they brought of notice was Eric Kendricks. I just don't think... Back. And Zeke back.
That really is one of their biggest moves.
For a team
he was good last year
that is trying to contend, it was an embarrassment of an offseason.
Saying they're one of the worst ran organizations, it's a strong statement. I understand the sentiment, but it's strong. They've made the playoffs every year that Dak's been there, aside from the one that he got injured, obviously. Also the one that they went 8-8, and then the Eagles clutched up. So 2 of the seasons Dak has been there. 2 of the seasons of the however many seasons Dak has been there, they've made the playoffs other than that. And on top of it, they draft pretty well, considering. So they have a bunch of talent. They just are unclutch in the biggest situations. And I'm not going to blame the front office. At a point, you got to look at the players and think, hey, what are we doing here? You lose to the Niners 2 years in a row. You lose to Jimmy Garoppolo, then you lose to Brock Purdy. Both of those games were within reach. The offense simply did not step up. And then this past season, the defense was atrocious against a Green Bay offense who was awesome, no doubt. You were supposed to get gashed in the run. You weren't supposed to let up 300 passing against Jordan Love, 3 touchdowns, whatever he had. But the defense was simply terrible. And then on top of it, the offense was also bad. I'm not going to sit here and blame the front office. The players at a certain point, we need to hold them accountable.
Can you name the last 5 head coaches for the Dallas Cowboys?
Mike McCarthy,
Jason
Garrett, Wade Phillips, Parcells. I can't name the last coach after Parcells.
Jimmy Johnson?
Yeah. Okay. No.
Not 5th.
Okay, so I got 4.
Parcells is in there. There's one you're missing in,
I said Wade Phillips.
In the middle of the Parcells Phillips era, I'm pretty sure.
I thought it went from Parcells to Phillips. And then Garrett, and then McCarthy. All right, why does the 5th coach matter?
Because since the Cowboys dynasty, they haven't... before Bill Parcells, it was Dave Campo.
Okay.
Then it was Chan Gailey. Then it was Barry Switzer. Since Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones has not hired a coach that will really challenge the establishment. Bill Parcells was the only one. Mike McCarthy was not an innovative offensive mind. The Cowboys went really safe with that pick, and while I do think he's a good head coach, it didn't give them the highest possible ceiling. When I look at the Cowboys, I look at somebody in Jerry Jones who's a very compulsive owner, and he plays to his attachments, which is a big reason why Jason Garrett was there for so long. I look at NFL teams right now. If I'm just talking about in this moment, what teams are ran better, the Bills are ran better, the Dolphins. I think the Chiefs are ran better, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Texans as of right now. I think they're ran better. I think the Steelers are ran better.
I think the Steelers and the Cowboys are kind of in similar positions.
Very stubborn.
Except the Cowboys at least have a quarterback. The Steelers haven't had a legit top-tier quarterback in like 5 years.
But there's no doubt in my mind that once the Steelers understand they're in that position, they're going to try to go all in. And that's what the Cowboys failed to do with just the lackluster off seasons. The Eagles are ran better, the 49ers, the Rams. I think there's a legitimate argument with the Seahawks. The Lions are ran better. The Packers are ran better.
Let me say this.
They traded Russell Wilson.
That was a great move by them.
And that was one of the best trades in history. They're most definitely ran better.
Yeah, but those players that they got back, we got to see what they're going to do.
It's the fact that they traded Russ. That was the trade in itself. And they got draft capital to rebuild their teams. One of those picks was Boye Mafe, who's one of the up and coming edge rushers. Amongst all these playoff teams, all of them, the Cowboys are the worst. Ran one.
But we understand that the Dallas Cowboys didn't make moves this offseason because they have to pay their high caliber guys.
They haven't paid their high caliber guys, though.
But that's the reason why they haven't gone out there and signed anyone. I think because if they went and they didn't sign or they went and they paid money to go and bring in a wide receiver, or paid money to go and bring in a quarterback, whatever the fuck. That's a disrespect to CeeDee Lamb. It's a disrespect to Dak Prescott. Obviously, we know these guys are going to get paid. Micah Parsons is going to get paid. We understand that that's going to be a record-breaking contract.
It doesn't matter. To
I think
disprove
there's
your
ways
argument,
to figure it out.
the Lions paid Amon-Ra. They paid Jared Goff. They still brought in DJ Reader. They still overhauled
Because
their
they
cornerback.
had money to spend. Dallas doesn't have money to spend.
The Cowboys can make things work within the salary cap.
But
That's
what would they
that's
have
what
to
you
do? Like they do every single season.
You restructure
They go-
contracts.
like
you pay
they
money.
do every
you pay money
year.
up front.
That's what you do
this
when
year.
you have a
Agreed,
contending
but they do
roster.
it every single season.
Who have they brought in? That's really been
brought in.
I'm saying
No
draft wise, they killed the draft. They have a lot of great
They do.
homegrown talent, but they don't
Yes.
usually add whether it's trade or free agency. I mean, look, they just traded away Amari Cooper a couple of years ago. Got a 5th round pick.
That was a
Terrible
bad move.
move.
Absolutely.
For a 5th round pick.
And even Seattle, I think Seattle now, because they're not in the same caliber as the Cowboys, even though going into next year, that really could be a toss-up. But even Seattle the last 10 years, when you're talking about Legion of Boom, you're talking about Russell Wilson, you're talking about Pete Carroll
Most
first coming
definitely
over
ran
here.
better than the Cowboys.
You
Most
have
definitely. It's not even an argument.
Yeah, I mean, you have Super Bowls to look back on. So Dallas,
Super Bowl.
I think it's a Super Bowl, multiple appearances. I think it's just a little bit frustrating for Cowboys fans because you're obviously good enough to win. Dak's good enough to be able to go to an NFC championship. He's good enough to go to the Super Bowl. But I think it's just every single year we see them have a great regular season and the playoffs come along. We all kind of look at each other, wink, wink. We know what's going to happen. I think that's the upsetting part. They're able to draft this talent and they always have good enough head coaches. Like you mentioned, Joel, Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy, Wade Phillips, they were fine head coaches. They weren't bottom 5 coaches in the league, but they're also, you're not taking that swing on a potential Mike McDaniel, on a potential Sean McVay. And of course it could go the other way and you get an Adam Gates. But the fact that you're just trying to like really overhaul this team and really say we are making a stride in the right direction, it's hard when you run it back with Dak Prescott every single year, even though great quarterback, top 10, and with Mike McCarthy now for year 3.
Look at the cachet of the Cowboys. They are number 1 in ratings every single year. This is a storied and historic franchise. For the lack of investment they've given the team, it's been a terrible mishap.
Lack of investment. They have spent so much money on their players that they draft. It's not that. It's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like Jerry has done a great job
Who are
of
they
drafting
paying right now?
players.
I'm just
Zach,
thinking.
Zach Martin. They're paying Lawrence. They're paying Dak. Even still, he's on an insane amount.
Their
of
offensive line is there's 3 backups there right now.
But Tyler Smith also was a draft pick. He was just on
He
the
was
All-Pro
great.
team.
Yeah.
Again, Zach Martin is there. This offensive line, although they did just lose Tyron Smith, it was a
the
huge
Cowboys
loss.
have their fair share of good draft picks. They do, as do a lot of teams. I think they have hit-
Trayvon Diggs, that was a hit. They had to
I
give
understand.
him top
Dak
money.
has a $55 million
That's what I know.
cap hit
I
this
thought
year.
so.
That is a big part into it. But just looking ahead, they have $65 million cap in 2025. You could push things behind the
Okay.
books, and you could push that 25, 26 if you wanted
Look
to.
at the Eagles. They managed to pay all their guys. AJ
got
Brown got
Saquon
paid.
and Bryce
Devontae
Hall.
Smith
no,
got
we
paid. Jalen Hurts got paid. And they brought in Saquon Barkley.
trade,
I'm not about to give that excuse
our
to
guy.
the Cowboys when we see
Sunrise.
teams, when they're in that window, they go all in. The Rams didn't care about the cap. When they traded for Jalen Ramsey, they said, we're going to get Von Miller too. We're going to try to go all in and win this year. And it worked out for them. The Cowboys have never once have said, you know what, we have the team to win this year. We're going to make one of those blockbuster trades. You know what, we're going to trade for a CMC. We're going to go all in and try to win
They
it all
did
this
trade
year.
for Amari Cooper,
When they had no receiver.
but they
that was
saw
also
they needed
what
to do.
26.
That was a while ago. Not 26. Was it? Damn, that long
It might have
ago?
been 2018.
2018. Yeah, that sounds right.
They had no receiver. Everybody was washed. Their offense was like watching paint on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. That was a desperation move. That's what that was. But they let Amari Cooper go when you could have had him. And now look at what their biggest weakness is on offense. They don't got another receiver next to CD that could take the pressure off the defense. This is a team that could have done so many more things, and they haven't. When you have as much cachet as the Cowboys, you got to be better and you got to do better.
It just goes to the statement of saying that they're the worst ran organization. I think that's strong.
Amongst all these playoff teams, I think they do. You know,
The Browns, like, if we're just going to go off history.
Recently, they've just been great.
Yeah, they've had a great 2 years.
3 or 4. Because with Baker, they wasn't terrible.
it's a fact.
Fair.
you can't take the politics out of it with the Browns because of them trading for Deshaun. I would say the worst. But if we're just talking about like from a skill and trying to manage your
Got
team
the Jaguars,
perspective,
you got the Panthers.
the Browns have done much more to make Deshaun successful than the Cowboys have done with Dak.
Like we just did the top 10 on Bleacher Report, head coaches and GMs. Where would Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones rank?
In the 20s.
Jerry Jones is pretty damn good at his job.
He's outside. They're outside the top 5-15.
What does Jerry Jones do?
He's one of the best drafters.
He didn't even want Dak Prescott. He wanted Connor Cook.
Who?
Connor Cook. He was a quarterback that Jerry Jones wanted to draft ahead of Dak Prescott.
So who drafted Dak instead?
It was one of the coaches in there who they overrided the decision because they didn't, or I forgot what happened in there, but I know for a fact that Jerry Jones did not want Dak. He wanted to draft Connor Cook. The best decision with the Cowboys hasn't even been Jerry Jones. Come on, man. Jerry Jones has been terrible. He's been awful. Yes, he has.
I don't know if I'd go that far. Again, they traded back with Philadelphia. Philadelphia drafted a receiver. They still were able to draft probably the best defensive player in that draft in Micah Parsons. You've drafted Trayvon Diggs, drafted Zach Martin, drafted, of course, CeeDee Lamb. Third receiver in that draft.
So you're not going to mention none of the misses? They just got all hits?
No, I'm just naming the great players on the team.
The last 3 years hasn't been the prettiest. I mean, including 2024, we don't know.
Well,
2023
Tyler Smith
wasn't great.
was just drafted by
that
them.
was 22. 23 was Mozzie Smith, first round, Luke Schoonmaker, Tyler Smith, Sam Williams, Jalen Tolbert, Ferguson the fourth. I guess that's fine. Deron Bland.